You don't lose friends as you age. You stop needing them. Frank is 68 and lives in Phoenix, Arizona. For 30 years, he teed off every Sunday morning at the same public course in Scottsdale with the same three buddies, Mike, Larry, and Dave. They called themselves the Sunday Foursome. Rain or shine, 6:30 a.m. sharp, coffee in styrofoam cups, carts rattling down the fairway. They'd been through everything together. Kids graduating, divorces, prostate scares, retirements. They buried Larry's wife together, celebrated Mike's hole-in-one with a round of beers that turned into a barbecue that lasted until midnight. They were supposed to be brothers, family, the kind of friends you grow old with. But 2 years ago, Frank did something unthinkable for a man his age. He quit. No dramatic speech, no farewell round. He just stopped showing up, sold his clubs on Craigslist, blocked their numbers, and vanished from the group text that had buzzed in his pocket every weekend for 3 decades. Word spread fast through the retirees' grapevine at the clubhouse. Frank's gone off the deep end. Midlife crisis at 68? After 30 years? What kind of man walks away from his friends? But here's what nobody says out loud. Sometimes, the people who've known you the longest are the ones holding you back the hardest. Walking away isn't disloyalty, it's survival. Be careful who you let into your inner circle. They cheer your birdies to your face while secretly keeping score of your bogeys. Outwardly loyal, inwardly resentful. Only 1 in 100 is truly big-hearted. Frank learned this the hard way, swing by painful swing. Today, I'm going to tell you exactly what happened to Frank, how the Sunday foursome turned toxic, how he finally found the guts to leave, and what his life looks like now, 2 years later. If you've ever felt drained by people you're supposed to keep forever, hit that like button and comment your age below. Let's get into it. It started on a brutal July morning in Phoenix, the kind where the sun is already punishing at dawn, and the air smells like hot asphalt and chlorine from nearby pools. Frank pulled his aging F-150 into the parking lot of Papago Golf Course, the public track they'd played since the 90s when green fees were $20 and nobody cared about your handicap. He grabbed his bag from the truck bed, the familiar weight of the clubs a ritual that used to feel like comfort. Today, it felt like dragging an anchor. Mike was already there, leaning against his gleaming white Escalade, sipping an iced latte from Starbucks. At 69, Mike had done well in commercial real estate and never let anyone forget it. New clubs every season, custom-fitted, graphite shafts, the works. "Morning, Frankie," he called, flashing that salesman grin. "You ready to lose some money today?" Frank forced a chuckle. "Always ready to take yours, Mike." But inside, he felt the knot forming in his gut, the same knot that had been tightening for months. They waited for the others under the shade of a Palo Verde tree. Larry arrived next, huffing as he hauled his bag from his 10-year-old Camry. Larry was 70, retired from the post office, living on a fixed pension that he complained about constantly. "Gas is up to $4.80 a gallon," he announced without greeting. "How's a man supposed to live?" Mike smirked. "Sell the Camry, get something that doesn't guzzle, or invest better." Larry's face tightened. "Easy for you to say, Mr. Escalade." Frank stayed quiet. He drove a 15-year-old truck with 180,000 miles and didn't feel the need to apologize for it. Dave rolled up last, as always, in his lifted Silverado with Gulf decals covering the back window. At 67, Dave was the joker of the group, retired firefighter, still built like he could carry a hose up 10 flights. "Gentlemen," he boomed, slamming his door, "let's get this show on the road before we melt." They loaded carts, paid the starter, and headed to the first tee. The front nine started like any other Sunday. Banter about the Diamondbacks' losing streak, complaints about HOA fees, the usual. Frank birdied the par 3 fourth, a rare highlight. "Nice shot, old man," Dave said, clapping him on the back. But by the turn, the tone shifted, the way it always did lately. On the 10th fairway, Mike's drive sailed 280 yards down the middle. He turned with that smug look. "New driver, titanium face, low spin. You guys should upgrade." Larry muttered, "Some of us can't drop $2,000 on a stick." Mike laughed. "It's not $2,000 if you finance it, Lar." Dave jumped in. "Frank, when you gonna replace those ancient ping irons? You're leaving 30 yards out there." Frank shrugged. "They still work?" Mike shook his head. "Still driving that old Ford too? Man, you're stuck in 2008. The jab landed harder than intended. Frank's late wife Carol had helped him pick that truck. He gripped his club tighter. By the 14th, Larry was griping about his knee replacement. "Surgeon says I need the other one done. 20 grand out of pocket after insurance." Dave snorted. "Shoulda kept the firefighter health plan. Best in the state." Larry shot back. "Some of us didn't get to retire at 55 with a fat pension." Dave's face darkened. "Watch it, postal boy." Mike, ever the peacemaker when it suited him, changed the subject to his latest stock wins. "Portfolio's up 18% this year. You guys still holding those dogs?" Frank, who'd taken a conservative approach after Carol's medical bills, stayed silent. Larry muttered something about lucky timing. The final straw came on the 17th green. Frank had a 10-footer for par, a knee-knocker downhill. He missed, the ball lipping out. Dave laughed loudly. "That's what happens when you don't practice, Frank. Too busy tinkering in that garage." Frank's hobby was woodworking. He'd built Carol's casket himself when the funeral home quoted $8,000. The others knew that. Dave knew that. The laughter echoed across the green like a slap. Frank tapped in for bogey, packed his putter, and said nothing. They settled bets in the clubhouse over beers. Frank was down $40 as usual. Mike collected with a grin. "Better luck next week, buddy." Frank nodded, paid, and left early, claiming a headache from the heat. In the parking lot, he sat in his truck for 10 minutes, staring at the dashboard. "Why do I keep doing this? When did a round of golf start feeling like a root canal?" That night, Frank grilled steaks on the back patio of his modest ranch house in Ahwatukee. The desert sunset painted the sky orange and purple over the saguaros. He ate alone, the silence loud after years of Carol's laughter filling the space. She'd passed 7 years ago, cancer, quick and cruel. The guys had been there then, rides to chemo, meals dropped off, sitting with him at the hospital. But somewhere along the line, their support had curdled into competition, their camaraderie into critique. Frank opened a second beer and thought back to last month's round. He'd mentioned his knee acting up, considering surgery. Mike had waved it off. "Walk it off. I played with a torn meniscus for years." Larry had complained about his own pain for 20 minutes straight. No one asked Frank how physical therapy was going. Another time, he'd shared excitement about volunteering at the VA woodshop, teaching vets to build furniture. Dave had mocked it. Arts and crafts? What's next, macrame? The others laughed. Frank had swallowed the hurt. Lying in bed that night, ceiling fan whirring, Frank replayed the day. The digs about his truck, his clubs, his investments, his hobbies. The way they turned every conversation into a pissing contest. Trust dies in small cuts. The eye rolls, the interruptions, the feeling that your wins are minimized and your losses magnified. Frank's trust had been bleeding out for years. He'd just kept applying band-aids of habit and history. But something shifted that night. A voice, quiet but firm. "You deserve better than this." The next Saturday, Mike texted the group. "Tomorrow 6:30, weather's perfect." Larry, "In." Dave, "Let's take Frank's money again." Frank stared at the message. He could reply, "Yup," show up, endure another 4 hours of subtle belittlement. Or he could finally choose peace. His thumb hovered. Then he typed, "Can't make it tomorrow, family stuff." Mike shot back instantly. "Everything okay?" Frank didn't answer. Sunday morning came. Frank woke at 5:45 out of habit, lay there listening to the quiet house. No rushing to load clubs, no forcing conversation over bad coffee. He made a full breakfast, eggs, bacon, toast, and ate on the patio, watching the sun rise over the mountains. The relief was physical, like loosening a belt 2 notches too tight. A week later, the group text buzzed again. "Dave, you alive, Frank? Missing your slice into the desert." Frank left it on red. Then Mike called. Frank let it go to voicemail. The message, "Hey man, what's going on? We're worried. Call me." Frank deleted it.
2 weeks became a month. Frank used the time to clean out the garage. He dusted off his woodworking tools, started a new project, a cedar hope chest for his granddaughter's upcoming graduation. The smell of fresh-cut wood filled the space Carol used to call his sanctuary. He worked with the radio on low, classic rock, no voices competing for airtime. One afternoon, Larry showed up unannounced, knocking on the garage door. Frank wiped sawdust from his hands and greeted him. They sat on folding chairs among the tools. "You've been ghosting us," Larry said bluntly. "What's the deal?" Frank took a breath. "I'm done, Larry. The golf, the group, it's not fun anymore." Larry frowned. "Not fun? It's golf. It's us." Frank shook his head. "It's the constant jabs, the one-upping. I leave every Sunday feeling worse than when I arrived." Larry looked wounded. "We're just messing around. Guys give each other shit, always have." Frank met his eyes. "There's messing around and there's making someone feel small week after week. I'm too old for the second one." Larry stood. 30 years, Frank. 30, and you throw it away because feelings got hurt?" He left without another word. Frank closed the garage door, heart heavy but resolute. He posted his clubs online that night. A young dad bought them for his teenage son, half the price Frank paid new. Watching them drive away felt like closing a chapter. The first few months were strange. Sundays stretched wide open. Frank drove out to the Superstition Mountains alone, hiked easy trails he'd always meant to try. The desert was quiet except for his footsteps and the occasional coyote call. He noticed things he'd never seen from a golf cart: wildflowers blooming in arroyo beds, ancient petroglyphs on canyon walls. Solitude wasn't lonely, it was spacious. He started walking the canal paths near his house at dawn, nodding to other early risers, runners, dog walkers, fellow retirees. One morning, an older man in a National Park Service cap fell into step beside him. "Beautiful morning," the man said. "Sure is," Frank replied. They walked half a mile chatting about the weather, then trails. The man introduced himself as Ray, 72, retired park ranger. "I hike South Mountain every Tuesday if you ever want company. No pressure." Frank hesitated, then said, "Maybe I will." The next Tuesday, Frank met Ray at the trailhead. Just the two of them, slow and steady up the switchbacks. Conversation flowed easily. Favorite parks, Grand Canyon stories, the best burger joints in town. No bragging, no scorekeeping. At the summit, they sat eating peanut butter sandwiches, looking out over the sprawling valley. "Peaceful up here," Ray said. Frank nodded. "Been a while since I felt this good." Ray introduced him to a loose group of retirees who hiked different trails each week, sometimes 4 people, sometimes 10. They shared water, pointed out birds, took photos at viewpoints. No one cared about your net worth or your drive distance. They cared whether you'd brought enough sunscreen. Frank's woodworking flourished too. He finished the hope chest, lined with cedar, carved with his granddaughter's initials. She cried when he gave it to her. Word spread among neighbors. Soon he had commissions for cutting boards, Adirondack chairs, even a dining table. His garage became a workshop again, sawdust and satisfaction. 6 months after quitting golf, Frank ran into Mike at Home Depot. Mike's cart was full of patio furniture. Frank's held lumber. "Frank," Mike said, surprise in his voice. "Haven't seen you on the course." Frank smiled evenly. "Sold the clubs." Mike's eyebrows shot up. "Seriously? After 30 years? Frank nodded. "Needed a change." Mike shifted. "We miss you, man. The foursome's not the same. Dave's partnered with some new guy. Total asshole." Frank felt a flicker of something. Sadness? Vindication? But it passed. "I'm good, Mike. Really good." Mike looked like he wanted to argue, then just said, "Well, take care." He walked away. A full year passed. Frank turned 69. His knees felt better from hiking instead of twisting in golf swings. His bank account was steadier without weekend bets and green fees. He'd lost 15 pounds, slept better, laughed more. Ray became a true friend. They took a road trip to Zion and Bryce, camping in Frank's truck camper, cooking over campfires under stars that felt close enough to touch.
One evening, sitting on his patio with a cold beer, watching monsoon clouds build over the mountains, Frank reflected. Old age isn't about clinging to the past, it's about curating your present. Guilt had visited often in those first months, 30 years gone, but it had faded like desert rain. In its place, calm. 2 years after walking away, Frank is 70 now. He hikes 3 times a week, woodworks most afternoons, and spends Sundays however he damn well pleases. Sometimes driving out to the desert to photograph sunrise, sometimes just reading on the patio with coffee refills. He doesn't need constant company. He's comfortable in his own skin again. But every story has a moment that tests the choice. One Sunday morning, as Frank laced up his hiking boots, his phone rang, an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but answered. It was Dave. "Frank, it's me. Look, I'm at the hospital. Heart thing. Scare, but I'm okay. The guys are here, but it's not the same without you." Silence stretched. Frank's chest tightened. "I'm glad you're okay, Dave." Dave's voice cracked. "Can you come? For old times?" Frank looked out at the mountains glowing in early light. He thought of Carol, of the hope chest, of quiet trails and genuine laughter. "I'm sorry, Dave. I can't. But I hope you feel better soon." He hung up gently. That afternoon, Frank hiked alone to a favorite overlook. He sat on a rock, wind cooling the sweat on his neck, valley sprawling below. He thought about the foursome, the idea of lifelong brotherhood. He missed the memory sometimes, the early years, the pure joy. But the reality? He didn't miss that at all. Freedom, he realized, isn't running away. It's walking towards something better, even if that something is simply peace. Frank's story isn't rare. Thousands of men in their 60s and 70s are quietly stepping away from toxic groups, golf buddies, fishing crews, poker tables, not because they're angry or bitter, but because they finally value their remaining years enough to protect them. Some people will take and take until you stop giving, and when you do, they'll call you selfish. Don't feel guilty for choosing your peace. You didn't lose them, they lost access to you. You don't lose friends as you age, you stop needing the ones who drain you, and that's more than okay. Frank sat on that rock a long time, the sun climbing higher, warming the stone beneath him. The call from Dave lingered in the air like smoke from a distant wildfire, a heart scare. The guys gathering at the hospital. Part of him, the old part, felt the tug of loyalty, the echo of 30 years of shared mornings. But the new part, the part that had hiked hundreds of miles and built furniture with his own hands, felt only a quiet certainty. He wasn't going back, not to the golf course, not to the clubhouse beers, not to the version of himself that swallowed jabs to keep the peace. He hiked down the mountain slowly, letting the switchbacks unwind the tension in his chest. By the time he reached the truck, the moment had passed. He drove home with the windows down, desert wind whipping through the cab, classic rock on the radio. No guilt, just clarity. That was 2 years ago now. Frank is 70 today, and life looks nothing like it did when he was dragging clubs to the course every Sunday, feeling heavier with each step. The second year without the foursome unfolded like a slow opening. The hiking group with Ray grew into a steady rhythm. Tuesday mornings at South Mountain, Thursday evenings at Camelback when the heat broke, occasional weekend overnights in the Mogollon Rim country. They weren't a tight crew in the old sense. People came and went depending on weather and health and grandkids visiting. Some weeks it was just Frank and Ray, others a dozen folks ranging from 55 to 82. They shared trail mix and stories about places they'd lived, mistakes they'd made, dreams they still harbored. No one kept score. Frank's woodworking took on a life of its own. Word spread through the hiking crowd and the VA wood shop where he volunteered. A neighbor asked for a set of patio chairs. Then Ray wanted a bookshelf. Then a woman from the trail group commissioned a dining table for her daughter's wedding gift. Frank raised his prices modestly, but mostly he just loved the work. The smell of cedar shavings curling from the planer,
the satisfaction of fitting a dovetail joint perfectly on the first try. He added a small sign above the garage door, Desert Woodcraft. No website, no advertising, just word of mouth. It was enough. He bought a used camper shell for the truck and started taking solo trips when the mood struck. 4 days in the White Mountains chasing fall color, a week along the Apache Trail photographing saguaros at sunrise. One memorable February when Phoenix hit an unusual cold snap, he drove north to Flagstaff, parked at a Forest Road pullout, and woke to 8 inches of fresh snow blanketing the pines. He made coffee on a camp stove and watched elk move through the meadow like ghosts. No one to complain about the cold. No one to rush him. Just silence and beauty. His daughter, Jenna, noticed the change first. She flew in from Denver for Thanksgiving that second year. "Dad, you look 10 years younger," she said over turkey in the dining room he'd refinished himself. "And happy, like actually happy." Frank shrugged, but the words landed deep. Jenna stayed an extra day, and they hiked Piestowa Peak together, something they hadn't done since she was in high school. At the summit, she asked about the golf guys. He told her the short version. She nodded. "Good for you. Life's too short for people who make you feel small." The third year brought subtle shifts. Frank's knees, once destined for replacement, stabilized with all the hiking and weight loss. His doctor reduced his blood pressure meds. Sleep came easier without the low-grade resentment simmering from Sunday afternoons. He started a small tradition. Every Sunday morning, instead of teeing off, he drove to a different overlook or trailhead with a thermos of coffee and a book. Sometimes he read, sometimes he just sat and watched the light change on the mountains. He called them his Sabbath mornings, half joking, but the name stuck. One of those Sundays, about 6 months ago, he ran into Larry at the grocery store. Larry was thinner, hair whiter, pushing a cart with mostly frozen dinners. They locked eyes in the produce aisle. Frank felt the old instinct to look away, but he didn't. "Hey, Larry." Larry stopped. "Frank?" An awkward beat. "How have you been?" Larry asked. Frank smiled easily. "Good, real good. Hiking a lot? Building furniture?" Larry nodded slowly. "I heard. Saw one of your chairs at the community center. Nice work." Silence stretched. Larry shifted. The group kind of fell apart after you left. Mike moved to Scottsdale full-time with his new girlfriend. Dave's health hasn't been great. I play alone now. 9 holes, early, before the heat." Frank felt a pang. Not triumph, just sadness for what had been lost on all sides. "I'm sorry to hear about Dave," he said honestly. Larry shrugged. "Yeah, well." He started to move past, then paused. "No hard feelings, I guess." Frank met his eyes. "None here." They parted without another word. That encounter settled something in Frank. Neutrality replaced the last traces of defensiveness. The foursome wasn't evil, they were just stuck in a pattern that no longer fit him. Letting go didn't require hating them, it just required choosing himself. Ray introduced him to a widow named Ellen at a group potluck last spring. Ellen was 68, a retired nurse with a quick laugh and eyes that crinkled at the corners. They talked about books first. Both loved Louis L'Amour and Tony Hillerman. Then about losing spouses, then about favorite camping spots. Nothing rushed. They started hiking together sometimes when Ray was visiting grandkids in Tucson. Coffee after trails turned into dinner at quiet Mexican places with patio seating. One evening in October, watching the sun set over the Estrellas from a trail west of town, Ellen reached for his hand. Frank let her. It felt natural, unforced. They haven't labeled anything yet. They don't need to. Companionship at 70 looks different. Gentle, grateful. No pressure to merge lives completely. It's enough. Frank still volunteers at the VA woodshop every Wednesday. He teaches vets, some young, some his age, how to measure twice, cut once, how to let the grain tell you what it wants to be. One kid, fresh from Afghanistan with a prosthetic leg and quiet eyes, built a toy chest for his new baby. When he sanded the final coat and ran his hand over the smooth lid, tears came. Frank just stood beside him, no words needed. Moments like that fill him more than any eagle putt ever did. This morning, his 70th birthday, he woke before dawn, drove out to the McDowell Mountains, and hiked to a ridge he loves. He sat on the same rock where Dave's call had reached him 2 years earlier. The valley spread below, lights twinkling off as the sky lightened from indigo to rose to gold. He thought about Carol, about the early days with the foursome when everything felt easy, about the man he'd been and the man he was becoming. He pulled a small cedar box from his pack, one he'd made himself, simple dovetails, oiled finish. Inside was a single golf ball, the one from his only hole-in-one back in 2000, signed by Mike, Larry, and Dave with a Sharpie that had faded but not disappeared. He'd kept it all this time, not sure why. Today, he knew. Frank stood, wound up like he was on the tee box, and drove that ball as far as he could into the desert morning. It sailed white against the blue sky, arcing over cholla and creosote, disappearing into the vastness. A clean strike. Closure.
He smiled, shouldered his pack, and hiked down lighter than he'd come up. Frank learned 3 big things in these years of letting go. First, old friends aren't automatically good friends. History is comforting, but comfort isn't the same as growth. 30 years of shared mornings doesn't obligate you to 30 more years of feeling diminished. A relationship, any relationship, should add energy, not subtract it. If it costs you peace, it's too expensive. Second, later life is inventory time. Energy is finite, time more so. You get to decide what and who deserves space on your shelf. Guilt is a lousy reason to keep anything that no longer serves you. Peace is a far better curator. Third, being alone isn't the opposite of connection. Sometimes it's the doorway to it. Solitude taught Frank who he was when no one was watching, when no one was scoring. Only then could he offer genuine company to others and receive it without armor. Frank's story isn't dramatic. No big confrontations, no viral social media post, no tearful reunion movie ending. Just a quiet, steady choice to protect the years he has left. And in doing so, he found more life than he'd had in decades. Thousands of men and women like him are making the same choice every day, stepping away from golf groups, fishing buddies, poker nights, bar stools where the same conversations circle like vultures. Not out of anger, out of self-respect. They're choosing trails over tee boxes, workshops over clubhouses, sunrises over scorecards. Some people will never understand. They'll call it selfish, or say you've changed, or remind you of the years. Let them. Your remaining time isn't a debt to be paid to the past, it's a gift to be lived in the present. You don't lose friends as you age, you stop needing the ones who take more than they give. And when you do, you make room for everything else. Quiet mornings, honest work, real laughter, maybe even new love that doesn't demand you shrink to fit it. Frank still gets the occasional text from an old golf acquaintance. "Hey, we're short a 4th Sunday, you in?" He doesn't reply anymore. He doesn't need to explain. His life is the answer.
If you've ever walked away from a group that drained you, comment below. How many years did it take you to finally do it? Or if you're still showing up out of habit, maybe Frank's story will give you the nudge you need. You deserve peace. Choose it. Thank you.